they are the only arm of government that does not renew its mandate. They don't go for elections to be re-elected as judges, and they're given security of tenure. I think that the obligation and responsibility of every president is to appoint fair-minded people. Human beings, as we are, will have our own inclinations towards one party, or towards one religion, or towards one culture or other. There are many things that make us who we are. But the obligation when you become a judge is to look at the cold, hard facts and rule based on that. Some of the pushback that we're seeing currently is the penchant by this president to pack the courts. And only recently, you've seen what happened. And I can't understand why the Chief Justice will be the one recommending, which judges to appoint. The Constitution is clear. That is the President who appoints judges in consultation with the advice of the Judicial Council. And so the initiative to appoint judges must come from the President and submitted to the Judicial Council. It brings it back with advice to the President, and the President forwards it to Parliament. That is the procedure. It is very rare that this time recommendation comes from the Chief Justice to the President. And even the issue of capping the number of judges. The Constitutional Review Committee recommended that we cap Supreme Court judges at 15. And so the issue of capping the Supreme Court is not for the Chief Justice to say. We will resurrect the Constitutional Review process when I become President. And when we do that, we will put it to the Ghanaian people whether we should retain the 15, whether we should reduce it, or whether we should increase it. And so I don't think that should be the Chief Justice saying that we should increase and cap at 15. And even when she says that, and cap at 20, and even when she says cap at 20, she has already recommended the 5 that will cap the 20. And even bring it to 21. Because if you add that 5, it will go to 21. And so I think that we must, as much as possible, if you have the discretion, the President of this country has a lot of discretionary powers. But that discretionary power must be exercised with responsibility, and make sure that when you are appointing people onto the judiciary, which has security of tenure until they reach 65 or 70 or whatever age is recommended, you cannot remove them unless for stated reason. And so in appointing people to such powerful positions where they are the arbiter of whatever happens in this country, we must make sure that we use the criteria of fair-minded people who can put their prejudices aside and be able to judge fairly, because they are the last resort when disputes occur. And so I think that is. I was speaking in Elugu when I made the statement that I made, and that statement was in 2016, and it was made to justify why I deserve a second term in office. And I believe that at that time we made significant steps in terms of stabilizing the economy, in terms of infrastructure development. We had brought the natural gas processing plant on stream. We had been faced with a crippling energy crisis. We had turned it around by 2016. We had stabilized the power situation. We had worked hard to bring 2 new oil blocks on stream, which increased the volumes of our oil production and the value of our production. We had introduced a new Energy Sector Levy Act, which today is bringing in almost 9 billion cedis a year. And so there were several things that we had done. We had established a new port at Tema. We had built a new Terminal 3 at our airport. We had expanded the Takrady port. We had expanded educational infrastructure. We had expanded health infrastructure with district hospitals and regional hospitals. We had expanded access to electricity and water. We have built new markets in many places so that we could improve trade and commerce. And so on that basis, I wanted another term to be able to continue and consolidate what I've done, and that's why I made the statement that I did. But This time, I come back to the job with experience, and I'm going to hit the ground running. And so even though 4 years is short, I believe that in 4 years, we can reset our country. And there are objectives that one wants to achieve. And I say that in 4 years, we can establish a strong fight against corruption. It is possible for a president to do that. I believe that in 4 years, we can begin carrying out constitutional reforms and reviewing our constitution. And that is an objective that I believe I will put myself to and we can achieve in 4 years. In 4 years, we can begin to turn around our economic fortunes and stabilize the economy. I don't say that it will become a land of prosperity, but at least we'll turn around the decline, stabilize the economy, and put it back onto a path of growth. In 4 years, I believe that we can ameliorate and alleviate a lot of the hardship our people are facing currently. Because in stabilizing the economy and stabilizing the currency, I believe that in 4 years we can improve our infrastructure. If we implement the big push, we want to put $10 billion over 5 years in infrastructure development. It will include roads, it will include bridges, it will include the essential infrastructure that will make our country run. And I believe that in 4 years, with the implementation of the 24-hour economic policy, we can begin to create more jobs for our people. And so, yes, I think 4 years for the reset objectives that I have mentioned, one can create a turnaround and create a platform for resetting our country and giving it the opportunity to take off. Currently, the prosecution of the men's gold chief executive is ongoing, but I think that it should go beyond the investigation. I don't know how far they've gone with identifying the assets of men's gold and identifying the holdings, validating the holdings that people have. And it's only when you've done that and you know what the quantum involved in that you can make, promises and assurances of how to alleviate the suffering of Ghanaians. A lot of people really suffered under this men's gold, and many of our public servants and others who were enticed to put their monies in have suffered because of what has happened. And so when we come, we'll accelerate the prosecution of the person involved, but we'll also go one step further to look at what assets are recoverable and see what the quantum of investments that were made. Some people talk about some amounts of money, but I don't have that validation. It's until we have that validation that we can make an assurance that some restitution can be made. I'm aware of the case in court, and I don't want to comment on it in order that I'm not in contempt of court. But I would say that the security services are different from the public services. Be able, if you ask me, I do believe that we should be able to put the right people in the right places at any time in order to ensure the safety of our republic. If you do happen to have a security chief who is not effective, and because we pass a judgment that the president cannot touch him, it affects the safety of the citizens. And when it comes to safety of the citizens, it is something that we must take seriously. If a public servant makes a mistake, the consequences are not immediate. But if a security chief makes a mistake and we lose a life or people suffer harm, the consequences are irreversible. And so we must look at everything that goes with it. But let's leave it to the wisdom of the courts to make a decision, and then we'll decide how we all go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I can see the 2019 Journalist of the Year, Samson Ladi Ayedele here. Go to, no, that side, it's in the red and black smoke. My Fulani brother, where is that next? Regional Balance. Saturday, I'll come there. Then the sports journalists are here. Sadiq Adams is still here. Michael Usienji, Marcos Yazari, I'm coming to you. And His Excellency has told me that you'll be extending the time, so don't worry. Senior, the floor is yours.
It's refreshing to hear about what could be done about corruption. And Mr. President, when you were voted out, I encountered many civil society leaders who said the corruption was endemic, and extending the time of the NEC would mean the corruption will get worse. I hear the same civil society leaders repeat the same thing, that at least one benefit we can get as a country is not to keep the government in for 8 years because the corruption will get bad. I don't believe that we must get to elections before we can get what we deserve. I believe citizens' power ought to be exercised without the kind of repression we see with the police today, so that a young man, a PhD, Oliver Barker-Vormawor, is facing prosecution for stating a coup on Facebook. That ridiculous thing. I don't know if you will instruct your Attorney General to file a nolle prosequi to stop that nonsense. Now, you kept repeating reset, reset, reset. I believe it must be a very important word to you. In Kenya today, there is a reset, and the citizens are forcing it. 47 corporations, SOEs, are being dissolved. 50% of the president's advisors are losing their jobs. My question to you is, 8 people were killed in elections in 2020. We are 4 years down the line. Those lives must matter. Over 200 people in Ashaiman were brutalized by the army, and I wrote about it as state-sponsored terrorism against them. 180 of them were arrested by the military, manhandled and released without anything. As we speak, nothing has happened. What have you done as the opposition leader about these things? What will you do about these situations?
Thank you very much. You see, I've given you a lot of...
When or if you become president, will you cover that hole, complete the hole, or convert the hole? That's my question to you. And just across the street from that hole is the Office of Special Prosecutor. What's your plan with the OSP? Thank you so much.
For this round, I'm going to stay here for a while. I see Yati at the back. So let's go.
And Your Excellency, my question, Mami, with all permission.
Thank you.
Abandoned projects. Metia said you are buying me up of a starting again. Near the taxpayers' money, no project is one up. Look at Sakini. E-blocks, bazaar. At the end of the day, a car and the IMF. And yes, some person I have one young project is yet completed and yet. It's Your Excellency, abandoned projects will be pushing also by starting for and now the over here. And now first so ports. Yet you have taxi here 7 Nyanseni. And that Toyota Biz will get us 70 to 80,000. I don't know why we are here. It's a
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Alaska,
to do with our universities. What are those? We normally talk about free SHS without talking about the tertiary institutions, especially the universities. And there are a lot of challenges and problems there. My question is, what are you doing when you are voted for as the president of this country with regards to problems going on at the tertiary institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've taken enough. Okay, Benjamin Akako. Benjamin Akako, join us.
Thank you very much. I have one question in 2 parts. Your Excellency, you spoke about the Tema Oil Refinery in May. You made mention of the fact that you would revamp the Tema Oil Refinery, and that some of its problems are actually because it's a state-owned enterprise. I want to know what exactly is the plan. I feel the Tema Oil Refinery is a blot on our national conscience. What exactly is the plan? And feeding into that, you spoke about reliable internet. The last I recall, we had GhanaSat 1 launched in 2017, decommissioned in 2019. But if you paid attention to the recent internet shutdown and the concomitant effects, you would realize that we are susceptible to some of these challenges. Is your administration going to consider low Earth orbit satellite technology to ensure that we can have internet stability? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, before I move in, those of you here who still have questions, can I see you by hand? Okay, do me a favor, is it okay to stand this way? Yes, can you stand in the aisle for me? So I know that you are the ones left. Once we do you know we are done with here. No, if you can come and stand this way. Yes, in the aisle. Just wait a few minutes. Okay, you go back to your seats. I think the number is huge. I estimated it. The number is huge, so you sit for a while. I'll come back. Let's go to Waka Wilson from Ashanti Regional.
Thank you very much, sir. In fact, thank you for recognizing the importance of regional balance. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, you say you are only flexing muscles for the win, because as an individual, you've been accused of your flirtation with the Airbus scandal. I want to know how you will respond to your critics when they say that your corruption activities led to the Airbus scandal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take one last one, and that will bring the total to 7. Okay, another person from Ashanti Regional Forum, from Mercury of Ashanti Regional.
Thank you very much, Sammy. Your Excellency, my name is Oboriaja. I work with... Please, I'm the innocent one. I'm not the notorious one. Don't be scared of me. I'm not the notorious one. Please, I can assure you that everybody is the same as I'm not the notorious one. Okay. I work with a class media group, specifically Kumasi FM and Alicia FM Kumasi. Your Excellency, some times past, a member of the government died, and in his will, it became known that they had divided a plot of land at Chimota Forest for a relative, as if that was not enough. Now, there is a problem between the organized labor and government in respect of state hotels that are on the verge of being given to a cabinet minister. This week, a minister of state did tell Parliament that an amount of 399 Ghanaian cedis had been spent on the pit called the National Cathedral, at a time that what is seen and felt on the faces of the Ghanaian youth are homelessness, hopelessness, and joblessness. My question is that, when you were elected into office, what will you do to, one, stop the reckless and irrelevant state capture by government officials, and also two, to restore confidence in the faces of the Ghanaian youth? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Any world-class or international category A stadium in the whole of Ghana, despite billions of dollars sunk as creating infrastructure for the sports. What is Mr. President's vision in getting the best of infrastructure to one air talent, and to tie that in with the 24-hour economy? We travel around and see that sports is a very massive part of nightlife in countries even in Africa, but Ghanaian sports is designed that after 6 p.m. we all go back to sleep because of the lack of facilities and other amenities to enhance the creation of jobs in the night for sports. What is or how is the 24-hour economy designed? I've heard from our great trade business, how will that capture and affect sports so that we have around the clock sports development and enhancements in the country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
The first was about the prosecution of the laptop coup. In regards to our colleague Mahama, and I do think that I don't want to be in contempt of law, but I can say on authority that I don't think that that prosecution was necessary. And so let me just keep it like that, so that I don't get cited for contempt. I think that prosecution was unnecessary, and it was an overreaction by the government. With regards to what is happening in Kenya, I don't think that we have to wait for the backlash of what the youth did in Kenya for us to do the things that we have to do. And that's why I started talking. I said, look, the time has come for us to act, and that it can't be business as usual. The Kenyan youth have sent a signal to the whole of Africa that they will push back if the leaders don't do the right thing. And so definitely I'm signaling that there will not be business as usual in our new administration. We'll cut out waste, we'll cut out opulence, we'll bring a code of conduct for public sector, public appointees, especially political appointees, in how they behave in terms of their modesty, in terms of their humility. Your appointment to that office is an opportunity to serve. It's not an opportunity to lord it over the people. And so our political appointees and public office holders must change their attitudes. And so that is what we're going to insist on. That people that we appoint are modest people, they are humble, they will open up to the people, and will do the things that will make the lives of our young people better. And so we're going to hold them to a higher criteria of service than people have been held to in the past. And that's why I say, if you agree to serve, you must serve, and not have other side businesses and do other things. You must not go and buy state property. Anybody serving in my government will not be allowed to buy a state asset. Nobody serving in my government will buy a state asset. Vehicles or cars or buildings or land or anything, nobody serving in our government will be allowed to buy a state asset. With regards to the deaths, I have the same opinion as you. 8 of our citizens died for no reason, and our president has not even extended any recognition of what had happened, and no attempt has been made to investigate. I have said in several places that we'll investigate what happened and find out those culpable for those deaths. And aside from that, we'll compensate the families adequately on the loss of their loved ones. And it's not only the deaths during the election. You mentioned there are shaman brutalities. It shouldn't have happened. I mean, a soldier was killed, very unfortunate, by a group of armed robbers. And because of that, the whole community was subject to condoling with the victims, and also asking the military to exercise their patience. I believe that the military work in a very difficult environment. They are responsible for our safety and security. But at the same time, they should recognize that the money the taxpayers pay that put them in that uniform and give them those instruments are to protect the citizens and are not supposed to be used to brutalize the citizens. And so we need to see how we deal with that. I also was home. A whole commission of inquiry was set up. Government has with impunity refused to implement recommendations of the committee. Only recently I visited one of them he's unable to go back to work or do anything because of the infirmity in his leg. And so I went and presented a freezer, a flat screen TV, and 5,000 cedis to him in order to help him keep going. And I believe that people like that should be adequately compensated so that they can live their lives again. I am a Christian and I belong to the Assemblies of God Church. Ordinarily, building a house of God is something that we all do. I contributed monies in my local Assemblies of God branch to build our church, and it's created an environment for us to praise and worship our God. That members of the Board of Trustees, some of the members of the Board of Trustees have resigned, and they have called for a forensic audit on the National Cathedral. I'm not saying it. Members of the board believe that fraud has been perpetrated against the people of Ghana, and they are calling for a forensic audit. At the time this National Cathedral came up, it was somebody's personal commitment to God. And we are sure that public funds were not going to be used for the National Cathedral. Unfortunately, we hear that 300-something million has gone into it. Where did those payments go? Were they justified? Who did they go to? These are all things that we have to unravel. And I think that that is the first thing we do before we even decide what to do with that huge bit. And so first, let's investigate and do a forensic audit. And if people have, illegally and unlawfully taken the monies of the people of Ghana, they must be made to refund those monies. And so that's the first thing I'll do with regards to the cathedral. The attitude that I say, and they said, now your taxes, levies, they will form kakra. And so I feel so there, and say, send ya abayi ama the economy no, actually asero. IMF program no. IMF a catch from say, yet yeje and as a revenue ye nyam, and was see pager equal to 24%. Canning here 15%. Taxes are only up 2 years. A pager you have about 17.something%. And so almost by 2028, I will see it to 24%. If they just say, only taxes now will be good. And young and grew, so Rebecca said, $18 now person will VAT to electricity. So that was one of the reasons. And so, yes, a TU Simon, a Kotia. And by now, electricity bill be a VAT at that so. Young Kwani or mine will be a saying it just a yare, Abba, Echo, Yeti, FSI, COVID level. COVID about Echo, China, maybe a COVID in a free pool, and Geom COVID levy. And so Ghana Kwani did COVID levy. It is under man emissions tax, and it's our taxes, Nina, and yet are buying every 2 years as a result of IMF agreements on 1 year. It's no because maybe make a phone. Who are buying Moses here? So we make a phone more. Shall say, make a number to a phone number from new. Make us a Montomami answer, maybe, sir, a toy make me give you. And see, Nyawano, no. One of the things I very said, if it's streamlining VAT, because when Tiasia said, we call a job now and perform your son at home at the end. Back home, VAT 3%. Back home, the VAT was Rokakra. Back home, so VAT 21%. Meanwhile, we now the same customers. It is the power of now the Jimmy VAT 21%, and therefore, you are Jimmy 3%. It will see a streamlining so that traders in will pay the same rate in terms of value added tax. I feel so ports send your kind of Toyota bits that they could prove they would have done so by now. It's just a political gimmick. When elections are coming, then they start raising all kinds of issues and all that kind of thing. But I'm really focused. My commitment is to fight corruption. And if I come into office, I'll hold the administration to the high standard of accountability. And those who serve in my administration will also be vetted by the same yardstick. Yes, I will find people, and then Achimota Forest and looting of state lands and others. I've said that no person who accepts to serve in my administration will be allowed to buy any state assets. When you finish serving and you go and you want to do whatever, it's your, but as long as you are an appointee under my administration, buildings, lands, vehicles that belong to the state, you are not going to be allowed to buy or invest in any state asset. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that time is fast spent. I can only do one last round, and we will call it a day. But His Excellency has told me to assure you that we are going to have this media encounter again very soon. Sir, that is right? So we're going to have the last round because, and so after this round, His Excellency will give you the answers. We will do the vote of thanks and the closing prayer. But I would like to appeal to all of us to remain in our positions. My sister, spokesperson for His Excellency Joyce Muktari Power, has an important announcement for all of us, which we don't want to go out. So that is what is going to happen. Now I see, I see Captain Smart. I'll come here. Captain Smart, Captain Kojo Smart. Is he here? Yeah. He's in the middle lane, yes.
I'm here.
Bernard, I'm coming to you. Yes, so Captain.
Samuel Midas. Your Excellency, members of the country. The unique kind is the Fourth Republic, Yehun Rollins, Yehun Kufo, Yehun Professor Bills, why Yehun Da, already Mampani, Yehun Adamkariza, and it sounds like Yanti the Fufubia. I said, say you will let son go DH. The answer that who can say then Pania at the Fufra was taken coming. Who is a second for you, DH, near to Alabama.
Thank you very much.
Oh, join us at Chicago, last one. My Choba can say, what Ben for whom not will be and talk Ghana Japan. Now, one was a seer of one one day, now the banks very good. What do you want license and the Mahama woman answer one farm?
Thank you. Could you answer?
Thank you. Your Excellency, if I may say, this is a very good idea, and I hope you do stick to your promise to keep having such events. My question: if you win in December, do you still intend to grant an amnesty to the repentant Galamseyers?
All right, thank you. Obviously, Asari, you've had your hand up for a long time. Obviously, Asari.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Marcus Asari. I work with Media General.
Gender balance.
So recently the IEA was calling for a law that will prolong the term of the governor of the Bank of Ghana to exceed that of the tenure of the president. I know that's the status of it. I think the governor has a 4-year term, which is contemporaneous with that of the president. If you have the chance to renew the contract of the Bank of Ghana governor, would you do that? And you had several called for a cabinet reshuffle. You had asked the president, Anadan Bakufado, to reshuffle his finance minister. He did that, and you never applauded him.
Thank you very much. Ben Alavi.
Thank you very much, Sami. Thank you, Mr. President. I think there are two pending questions that were forgotten. The sports question and then the Umaru Sanda question on OSP. So my question is, you said that you can work with 60 ministers, which is interesting. The number of DCs has increased from 110 to 261. And it appears when districts are created, the EC also increases the constituency. So now we have 275. Those are also arms of government that are expensive. Now, while this is happening, the AMA had 9 districts created out of it in 2018 to 2019. So we are increasing districts. We are creating new districts in the AMA, but AMA has only 3 sub-metros. So the ability to raise revenue is also lower. So it's a 2-in-1 question. Are we going to stop at 261 districts, 275 constituencies, cutting costs? And within that same question, the issue of AMA becoming only 3 sub-metros, they can't raise enough revenue. So it's difficult to manage the city. You spoke about building a new capital. Does that mean Accra is a lost cause?
Thank you very much. Charles Okran of Daily Graphic. Charles Okran of Daily Graphic. Yes.
Good evening, Your Excellency. Please, we've heard you talk about a lot of programs and policies, but we find ourselves under a very watertight IMF policy, under a John Jane administration. Would you ask for a review of the IMF program with us? Thank you.
All right, bring the microphone to the front bench. There's a lady here who has a question.
Thank you so much, finally. On behalf of the women, I was about to start a gender protest, but thank you, Sami. Your Excellency, good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Nwong Falong. I've heard you outline certain intentions towards gender equality. What I have not heard is the affirmative action bill, which we believe is a critical accelerator towards gender equality. Do you have specific, targeted, special commitments towards the affirmative action bill?
I can see Shamima Muslim smiling. Thank you. Kemini, I was told that you had a question. Kemini of TV3. Gender balance.
It's about the general election. 2016, you will see Your Excellency Satamuna over midnight after 7 December, Madam Charlotte said, and also say, one system, hacking into their system. Never be see, and then 2020 general election, so you will see till today. MCBS 6 results in the Electoral Commission, Madam James announced the specific one, and now we don't go front with the 2020 general election. So sometimes no one can perform MDC said, it will be difficult for MDC to protect our votes.
Thank you very much. Randia Haji. Let me take one last one. I'm very sorry that.
All right, thank you. My name is Randia Haji, Wizard TV. Mr. President.
The measure that you will put in place to ensure that the people of Adan get their livelihoods back. I'm talking in relation to the issue where a single investor has been giving the whole Songo Lagoon and the people are deprived of their livelihoods and their brutalities, and freedom of the press is under attack. What exactly would you do to protect our natural resource should you come into power?
Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of the President's statement. His Excellency will give us the last round of answers and then we shall wrap up. But first, you have a question of sports from Sadiq Adams, which skipped you. So if you could start with that.
I'm sorry I missed the question on sports. One was whether we intend to provide a world-class sports stadium. It says that we don't have a world-class standard sports stadium. We've been to several countries. We've gone to watch matches. I've been to Wembley before. And it's a stadium of a different class from what we have here. And often countries are energized to build this stadium if you bid to host something, it creates the opportunity because you know that you will get returns on the investment when the tournament comes to your country. And so, I remember when we bid for the African Cup of Nations, some rehabilitation of stadia took place, but we didn't see any news that the world-class stadium was built. In the current crisis in which we are, I will not stand here and promise that we will build a new stadium, but I've said that under the big push, we intend to spend a certain amount of money over 5 years on providing good infrastructure to include roads, bridges, agro-industrial parks, and so on and so forth. That could include sports facilities, and if we make allocation, then we probably would look at providing such a stadium. And so that's what I can say. Sports, if you go to many countries, sports plays a very good part in the 24-hour economy. And so you find games being played at night under floodlights and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, here in many places we have to close the match before the sun goes down. Otherwise, there is not enough light to continue the match because we can't even keep the floodlights on. And so I do think that as part of the 24-hour economy, sports can play a very good part, and we will invest in sports facilities and help the people engaged, the private sector engaged in sports facilities, to be able to provide, service at night so that our people can enjoy that service. During the working day, people go to work and things. In the evening, they want to go witness a football match or go witness an athletics meet, and we don't have exactly the facilities to sustain that. And so it's something that we will think about. Many other said, and then potty and yet maybe for fraud, a bit to me and a bit to me as a son, Ama Yeshebre, Ghana for Shebre as now I'm saying, and no matter Makam said the central plank of your economic policy initially is to stabilize the economy, and only the priority, because maybe a Tokruma Yako Shero. I was said, Yetimi a yet na Yetimi a PA free Tokrunu. And Sana Waka Bibiaka, and America said 24-hour economy, and no a BBA economy, said the Baya, and Padan Benya Jumaya, Yamabun Benya Jumaya, because national security, like I said, the major threat to your stability in Ghana is youth unemployment. Abraham Iwabenu, now unemployment rate here a little over 8%, and net unemployment could do 14.7%. And we share Ghana's statistical standards, Ghana's statistical service on reports now. HSS and between Tema, things will deteriorate further. Because World Bank say 800,000 people have fallen below the poverty line just because of economic crisis are here from me. Another Ghana Statistical Service report say 8 million of our people ended that back because they couldn't afford to eat. 8 million people did not eat for one day because they couldn't afford food. The major emergency I want to say, I was said, yeah, the food inflation ever from. And the only way we can do is to say, yeah, Kasa, Eduania, Edino. I was said, yeah, Kasa, Eduia, na Yaka, na profit media food at affordable cost. And since I'm the money now, let me have said, Ebeya, Ebema, and Yoma, Assasa, and mine. Yache, Assasinafa, without consultation with the stakeholders. Because I said, Abraham Samuel Spire. International students hostel, we are changing in Alpha. Because I'm just by what just has in the back. And then the one a foreign ministry. AC, as a foreign ministry. And he said, Wafa, Abaya Japadia, or Quine Swap, and Randall and Pena. Yebesa are repossessing on behalf of the people of Ghana. And you know your commitment, I just said. And ministers and others who are doing the balancing. term of Bank of Ghana governor used to overlap the political season. It's a 4-year contract, but it depends on when the governor is appointed. And so if you remember, the last governor, who was the governor in my time, was Governor Isaku Nashiru. When I left office, Nashiru's term was still running. It was the same with Governor Akwa. His term overlapped government. It is only when Nashiru was forced to resign and a new governor was appointed that the term is becoming conterminous with the political season. But otherwise, really, it just says you have a 4-year contract. After 4-year contract, after 4 years, the contract is renewable. And so if a government comes into office and your contract has not expired, you continue as governor. And when the time comes and your contract is over, depending on your performance, your contract will be renewed. But if you're a governor who presided over a 60 billion loss, I wonder if you expect a contract extension. If you're a governor who printed 42 billion CDs, pumped it into the economy, pushed inflation to 54%, I wonder if you expect that you will get a contract extension. If you're a governor who in crisis decides that the best thing for a bank to do is to invest $250 million in a headquarters building, I don't know if you should have the expectation that your contract will be extended. And so I think that, yes, 4-year contract, but it must be based on the performance of the person or the individual who is in that office. To another sector, you find that he finds his feet and performs better. So from time to time, a president might look at his cabinet and shift people around or drop some people and bring new people in. It is something that happens all over the world. We were advocating for the reshuffling of the finance minister because from as far back as 2019, we could predict what was going to happen. The finance minister comes into office and all he knows is to borrow on the international capital markets. And not only because that's all he knows, but also he benefits from the borrowing. Conflict of interest. His company, Data Bank, anytime government borrowed, received commissions on the borrowing. And so that was an incentive to borrow. So is it any surprise that in 6 years, this finance minister borrowed $13.5 billion from the Eurobond market? With all the projects and infrastructure I invested in my time in office, the total amount I borrowed from the Eurobond market in the 4 years was $3.5 billion. In 6 years, this minister had borrowed $13.5 billion. And that is what has put us in the situation in which we are. And if that money had been put into productive use and infrastructure, we will not be sitting here and lamenting about this country. But most of that money went into consumption and into dubious projects that have brought no return to this country. And so if the president had reshuffled him earlier, we would not be in this mess that we are. MPP are very capable people. The only reason the president kept him in that office and refused to shuffle him is because he was his cousin. So you ask me, why haven't I congratulated the president for reshuffling the minister? The distraction has been done. In English they say is bolting the stable after the horses have escaped. When the man has finished kaputting the economy, you then remove him and then you say I should clap for you. I won't clap. I won't applaud him. They should have done that much earlier. Or perhaps I should have been out of that office in 2019, not at the time that he made him leave. And so I think that's my comment on that. Bernard, unfortunately, it is provided for in the Constitution And unfortunately, it has been misused by governments. A lot of the time, the motivation for splitting districts is to create additional constituencies. And so you find that districts have been split and become unviable because they are too small and do not have economic opportunity to be able to be viable as a district. There are many districts today whose only source of income is district assemblies common fund. And so unfortunately, that is what has happened. I remember when I was a deputy minister, the districts were under 100, about 90 districts or 70 districts or something like that. Today we have 261. And there is no scientific basis for the division except gerrymandering. Because there are districts that are bigger that should have been divided, that are not divided. But districts that are smaller that should have been left as they are, have been split and created into smaller districts. Because then the party that wins in that district can have two constituencies instead of one. So that is the case. Several districts that existed, constituencies that existed have been converted into districts. So in looking at the review of the Constitution, we must set some more stringent guidelines for the creation of districts. You know that now every traditional area wants a district. And so we're getting to the stage where every paramount chief wants his traditional area to be a district. Because I go around and the traditional paramount chiefs are requesting districts for their traditional areas. That's not what it was meant to be. But if you look in the Constitution, the creation of regions is specified, and you must go through a process that requires consensus building. Unfortunately, it's not the same with districts. With regions, you must have the Commission of Inquiry, and the Commission of Inquiry must recommend, and when it has recommended, it must go for a referendum. 40% of the people in that region must vote, and 75% of them must say yes. And so, if we do the constitutional review, we probably must look at making more stringent the creation of more districts. Because if we say it's just based on population and land size, where are we going to stop? Ghana today is 33 million people. It is predicted that by 2050 or something, 2030 something, will be 50 million people. And so if you say population is the driver, then by the time we have 50 million people, we'll have 600 districts. And so that is a major issue, and I agree with you. And I must say that, unfortunately, our preparation in terms of using the processes, the electoral process affords us to police the poll, were not effectively used. I can tell you we've learned the lessons from that time. And this time, it is going to be close marking. We're going to put the right people at the polling stations. And for those of you who are NDC supporters, we're asking for volunteers. We want to know which polling station you are voting in. We'll train you. And on that day, you will sit there for us. So those of you media people who are NDC supporters, give us your names. In the morning, you go and vote and go and wait. You vote and sit at your polling station. We'll have trained you, and you'll be our agents there to make sure that the right thing is done. We're going to man the collation centers. We have trained our people who are going to man the collation centers. They will be there. In some cases, in 2020, agents in the collation center went, and they said, oh, the returning officers have not come yet. So you go home and go and eat and rest and come early in the morning. By the time they came early in the morning, the result had been declared. And of course, it led to confusion. And you remember that some people were killed by that incident. And so we are going to take advantage of the levers that the electoral process offers us to be able to police the poll. So I can assure every Ghanaian voter who votes for the NDC that your vote will be protected. I can assure you. Home Airport is currently not functional, but it still gives us the opportunity for medical evacuations and emergency flights. And so several times I've seen the Air Force, land there for one reason or the other. Unfortunately, Passion Air started flights into Ho, but the demand was sluggish, and I'm told that on one flight they had only a single passenger. So it was not sustainable at the time. But I don't think we should give up. I think that commercial flights will resume to go. If people see that time is precious, and instead of driving that length of time, 3 hours to Puerto Rico, you probably are better off just flying 20 minutes and arriving on time. And so I do think some things can be done. But I also know that a group is intending to set up a pilot training school at the Ho Airport of international standard and bring student pilots from all over Africa and Ghanaian students to train as pilots. That would be a useful use of the airport. There are many ancillary activities that we can do, like aircraft maintenance. We can put aircraft hangars there so that aircrafts that need maintenance can come there and maintain. And so it will still be a useful facility. And we will encourage the private sector to make use of it. After all, we built the facility. And so we just have to encourage and entice the private sector to take advantage of it. And the final question was from Adal Songo Lagoon. I don't know the processes that were used for the award of that concession, but I think there is something worth looking at. I know that there was resistance from the people, and a journalist in the local media station was brutalized and harassed, and I hear he eventually died. And so it's something that we should look at. What processes were used, what is the effect on the livelihoods of the people, because that has been a very controversial issue. I remember that there was a company before, Vacuum Salt, that did the same thing. There were run-ins with the people, and eventually the PNDC had to come in and streamline things. I was told that I was not very clear. There are some nuisance taxes. I thought that when I mentioned COVID levy, you would all have assumed that I said we would take the COVID levy off. We are the only country that is still punishing our people for a pandemic that has passed. And so I think that there are other revenue sources that we can use other than the COVID levy. Aside from that e-levy, with all the noise that was made, the revenue that is coming in is 1 billion cedis. And why would you punish people who want to use electronic means of payment only to bring in 1 billion cedis and prevent them from doing so? And it hasn't brought in the required cash because Ghanaians are cashing out. Because why should I go and use Momo to pay? I pay a 1% transaction fee, then I pay another 1.5% COVID levy. So I pay 2.5%. But my colleague who uses cash to pay does not pay any tax. And so I'll also cash out the money from my Momo wallet and I'll go and buy what I want. And that is why e-levy is not performing. And so if we want people to use more cashless transactions, and I think that we must build a target for ending collecting of cash. All government payments must be cashless, using electronic forms of payment. And if we're able to do that and take the punitive taxes off, I think more people would use it. And so I've said already that we will abolish e-levy, so that's something that we intend to do. And so the nuisance taxes, we will take them off. And apart from that, like I said, we'll streamline the taxes and we'll make sure that we're able to spread the tax net. We've always talked about it, but this is the time for us to take action. The other time I was wondering, I have a house, people come and service my air conditioners. If there's an electrical fault, somebody comes and repairs it. A plumber comes, if there's a fault with the plumbing system and all that. And it's a cash economy. I pay them with cash. And I wonder, takes tax from all these people, all these workmen, all these artisans. At least there must be a small percentage of that so that they also are bearing the burden of the tax net. And so if we can find instruments to be able to reach those people, probably pass legislation that makes it compulsory that if somebody like that comes to work, he must be registered as a qualified plumber or as a qualified electrician, and to be registered, you must have an electronic payment handle, either a POS or a mobile money system. I must have a means where if you pay him, a small percentage of it goes into the tax net. That will bring more people into the tax net. But these are ideas that we are still distilling, and the details of it will be in our manifesto when we launch in August. You will see the meat and the issues that are captured in that manifesto. Thank you very much.
And Elizabeth, Umaru's question on whether or not you scrap the office of special prosecutor. And Koko Useji says he didn't get your answer on what you will do for the customers of the collapsed banks and Men's Gold.
I answered on Men's Gold for the collapsed banks. I said that we'll restore the licenses of banks that were justifiably taken. You see, the significance of that whole thing is that those banks that were closed were the banks that held the investment of indigenous Ghanaians in the banking sector. Before, most banks were foreign banks until we encouraged Ghanaians to enter the finance and banking sector. And a lot of people like Dr. Ndum, Dr. Pabnalifo, Heritage, and all those other banks that were closed put their monies in, got licenses, and UT Bank and all of them. And they run successful operations. You see, those banks were the banks in the riskier end of the market because they were the ones doing SME lending. And SME lending is the most risky part of the banking sector. The foreign banks lend to big customers, the Unilevers of this world and big customers like that. And those lendings are not risky because the establishments are known and they know that they'll get their money back. And so you could expect that definitely the banks that were working in the SME sector, which is the riskier end of the market, will have liquidity problems based on bad debt and all that. But the answer was not to clean them out, shut them down, throw more than 10,000 banking professionals onto the streets, and incur a debt of 25 billion Ghana cedis when you could have resolved the matter with less than 5 billion. Because the reason for which they were closed was that they should increase their reserve requirement to 400 million. And so if 10 banks were closed, 400 million is 4 billion. So why couldn't Bank of Ghana give liquidity support to those banks, put them under administration, and make sure that they pay down the equity every year until they are able to repay the liquidity support? It was done in the case of, I think, the Bank of Scotland also. The British government knew the bank was going down. They gave them a liquidity injection and took equity in proportion to the liquidity they gave them. Today, that bank has fully paid. It's one of the strongest banks that you can find in England. And so I think that there were other ways we could have solved this problem without this knee-jerk action of just closing those banks. So I've said that we must restore indigenous investment in the banking sector, and we would give back the licenses of those whose banks were unjustifiable to play taking. There might be financial implications to it, but we must be prepared to bear those financial implications, because when government does wrong, it must restitute. And so I think that these are things that we look at with regards to the banking sector. Apart from that, not every bank must be a Class A bank. And so you can't say every bank must have a reserve ratio of 400 million, because they lend to different segments of the market. There are banks that are lending to small communities, and their reserve requirement should not be 400 million. Why do you need 400 million to establish a bank that is catering to a certain segment of the market? And so we'll have a tiered banking structure. For the small banks, Class C banks that lend to the SME sector, 80 million cedis or 100 million cedis is enough for them to operate. For the medium scale banks, 200 million cedis, 300 million cedis is enough for them to operate. And then for the Class A banks, the big banks, we can raise the reserve requirement even higher. So I think that is what we need to look at.
OSP, whether we do scrap it or not.
While that's in this work, that office can be more, efficient. Today, cases that the special prosecutor took up. I mean, one cannot understand what is happening. You see what happened between the special prosecutor and Yoko. The docket has been sent to Yoko. Yoko said we haven't received any document and all that and all that. And so the case has been left to that. Today, the $1 million something the bed case is effectively dead. And don't think that it died because justice prevailed. It died because of political interference. Another case, PPA went to court and the judge ordered the unfreezing of their accounts. The day he ordered the unfreezing of their accounts, the next day all the money was withdrawn from their accounts. And so we need to create an environment where the special prosecutor can work and work on behalf of the people of Ghana. And so I will not scrap that office. I will strengthen that office to be able to investigate those who are leaving office, who have been harassing the prosecutor, and also investigating my people who will fall foul of the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you will agree with me that what has happened in this auditorium this evening is historic. 2 hours of questions and answers. I have never seen any opposition leader do this. And Your Excellency, I think you need to tell us the secret of your stamina. But even me, because even me, my young bones are suffering here. Thank you very much for what you've done for us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my job is done. I will hand over to my sister Joyce Mutaribawa, who will be closing us.
Express our gratitude. Heavenly Father, we thank you for such a wonderful evening. We thank you for your guidance. We thank you for this amazing experience, for your presence, and for the fact that you made it possible. All of us here have been enlightened, and we ask that you lead us safely back to our homes. As the campaign gears up to a good start, Father, we invite you into our campaign, we invite you into our lives, into our messages, and we ask you that all of us here will work very, very hard to build the Ghana that all of us will be proud of. We thank you through Christ our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Wonderful light refreshments for all of us so we can interact with the network and discuss all the other things that we're unable to discuss in the room. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening and may God richly bless each and every one of us. I thank you for your time.